Hi, it's Madeleine from EarthKandi, and I'm just going to show you today just a few tips and tricks that I use personally that might help you with your soap making. Everybody has different ways of doing things. There's a lot of stuff on the internet. Soapqueen.com is a really good place to start. But you know, as you go along, you develop your own little tricks and tips, and a lot of it's just common sense. So for a start, when I melt my solid oils, so I have coconut oil in here and vegetable oil, and I melt that in a stainless steel bowl because it conducts the heat better and it also cools down more quickly. And the rest of the oils, and I've got castor oil and olive oil in here, I always weigh out separately so that I can pour the cooler oil into the warmer oil, and that helps it to cool down faster, because you know, especially in the summer, if you just leave it to cool down naturally, then it's going to be a bit of a nightmare. You can be there for like 45 minutes. The other thing that I normally do is put my oils and my lye mix into the sink and fill the sink with cold water, and if I really want to bring it down, I'll put ice cubes in the water so that I can bring my cool down time to 10 minutes instead of waiting half an hour. The other thing that I use quite a lot is titanium dioxide, and you've seen me with this before. I use a water-soluble titanium dioxide because I sometimes use it in my melt and pour. So you don't want to have an oil-based titanium dioxide going into your melt and pour. I don't anyway. I find this is much easier. And you just pour this straight into your mix after you've added the lye, and use a stick blender, and it's fine. Just goes straight in, and it gives your soap that really nice white finish. I usually make my soaps in 30 to 36 pound, 30 to 36 ounce amounts, and into a kilo mould. I just prefer to do it like that, and I don't tend to make huge batches. I have done before, but I do prefer to make smaller batches, because you know, anything can happen with soap making, and you can have a batch sort of it'll rice or seize, and then you've lost, you know, 50 ounces of it instead of 30 ounces of it. And for a 30 to 36 ounce mix, I use 50 mils of fragrance. That's what I use. Might be a little bit more than other people, but I just work with that, and that's that size bottle. And I find that gives it a really strong fragrance that lasts quite well. Colour, always be very, very frugal with your colour when you first put it in. You'll find if you use titanium dioxide that the colour is weaker and more pastel, but again, I put it in a teaspoon at a time. In fact, not even that. I've got a little tiny spoon that I use. The other thing that I'm using in my soaps at the moment is sodium lactate. Now you can purchase that at any good soap supplier store. I use liquid. It comes in liquid and powder, and I use a 60% solution, which is the liquid, and you add this to your soap mix. You actually put it in the lye first, and then put the lye into the oil. So that's when you'd add it, and the percentage is they say anything between 1 and 3% of your mix. But I'm finding that with a 30 ounce mix, 3 ounces is too much. So I've brought it down to just under 2, because 1 didn't work and 1.5 wasn't quite hard enough. And what this stuff does is it acts as a preservative, but it also makes your soap harden up much faster and cuts down the cure time. And just one quick thing about your stick blender, if you have one, always unplug your stick blender from the wall if you're going to touch the blades, because I nearly had my finger off very foolishly when I was multitasking with the batters and the colours and the fragrances. I picked it up to clean it and forgot that it was switched on, and it went on and it nearly took my finger off. So do be careful with your stick blender. Try and get one that has a button that's really hard to press down. Mine has like a springy thing that's quite hard. I think they're all made like that, but you know, treat it with a lot of respect. Anyway, I'll be back later to show you what I'm making today. I'll speak to you later. Hi, it's me again. I just thought I'd show you what happens when you put too much sodium lactate into your soap. Okay, it makes your soap quite brittle. And what happened was that I poured this particular soap in 2 layers, the bottom layer and the top layer, and it sets the soap quite quickly. So you have to work really quickly with it, and I wouldn't advise you piping your soap using sodium lactate because it hardens up too quickly. And what happened was, it only happened with this one slice. I don't know why. Something to do with the way I put it on, I suppose, but it separated, which is really rare for cold processed soap, but that particular piece just came off, and I think it's something to do with the way that I was spooning it onto the top layer. And you can see, I mean, it's not, you know, I'll use that for me. I usually do keep back a piece anyway, but anyway, that's just to show you too much sodium lactate can make your soap separate, and also it'll be too brittle. Hi, just a quick word about my mould. My current favourite mould at the moment, I have several, but this particular kind I'm really loving to bits at the moment, and I've got about 8 of them. I bought it off Etsy, of all places. So if you go on Etsy.com, you can probably find them on there. They're not cheap, but they're really solid, really sturdy little things. They do tend to bell out, and I've showed you an early video how I get around that. But they really do give you really sharp edges. They can go into the oven so that you can bake your soap if you want to do that, and use the oven process method. And when you use the sodium lactate, it just slides out like a dream, so you don't have to line it. I find the wooden moulds quite tedious because you've got to line them, and so I use these, so I thought I'd just share that with you. Another tip, I always tend to warm my oils up. Please excuse my pan, this is my old soap pan, by the way, it's not anything I cook with. I put my fragrance oil bottle into warm water to warm up the oil before I add it to the soap batter, which is here, because I don't want the shock of the cold oil going in that and dropping the temperature anymore. And what I'm going to do here is, before I add the titanium dioxide, I'm going to separate some of this batter into a dish, so that I have half my batter with sodium dioxide and half without. You'll see why. Okay, here we are with the soap that I've just made. I've had to pour it really quickly. I couldn't even film it because it was starting to set. And I just poured the white in first. As you can see, it's going really, really hard now, starting to set up, and I can work with it. It's come out exactly as I wanted it to come out. It's looking a bit like yoghurt with apple puree in it, which is exactly what I wanted it to look like. I'm so pleased with the colour. You can see with the titanium dioxide, sorry, I'm holding the camera again, it's all over the place, but you can kind of see the consistency of that, how it's hardening up already with the titanium dioxide, sodium lactate. And you can work with it with these wonderful patterns, and this is what I want it to look like. I want it to look like quite a rustic soap, with some nice dips and bits and pieces in it. That's lovely, that's just exactly how I wanted it. Had to put my little gutter bracket over it to hold it together, but it does the job, does what it wants to do. And I'm going to leave that now for probably about 2 or 3 hours. You can leave it for about an hour, but I prefer to leave it about 2 or 3, and then I can unmould it and cut it. And you wouldn't normally be able to do that with without the sodium lactate in it. It makes a beautiful, hard, crisp bar of soap, it really does. So I'll come back and cut this later. Hi there, I'm back now cutting the soap that I made earlier. So as you can see, I've just unmoulded it, and it's really quite firm, and this is just a couple of hours in the mould. And you can see how firm that is. So let's just cut a couple of slices. I've got this new cutter. I'm going to try this and see how this works. This is a Wilton baking, I don't know what it is really, a cutter, some kind of cutter that you see quite a few people using for their soaps. I'm hoping it's going to give me a straighter, cleaner cut than the knife, but I'm not so sure that it does. Anyway, it seems to be doing the cutting okay. Probably just takes a bit of getting used to. I really should have a guide of some kind. I keep threatening to get something that I can guide the soap through. So as you can see, that's fine. I like that. I love the colour. You've got this lovely apple green. And because I put the colour into the soap without the titanium dioxide in it, you get this nice, it's got a sort of sorbet look to it. And the rest of the soap is creamy. So it's doing really well, and I am pleased with that. Really like the way that's come out. Little bit less of the sodium lactate has given it a little bit of spring and not quite as brittle. So I think I've got the right amount now. I figured that out. It's taken me a few goes to do it, but I've got there in the end. Not so sure about this cutter though. So there you go. I love that. And this has been fragranced with a fragrance called Wildwood. I love the way that you've got all the different sort of colours. It's not all you know, the swirls are different. There you go. I think that's come out quite well.